Come here. We're dead. Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
And I'm MK.
How are you?
Um, I'm not doing the best, but I'm here to talk to you all today
Okay.
about a choice, but a choice that has been made by Applebee's. And that choice is to become co-sponsors with Cheetos.
That is a choice.
And Applebee's currently has a Cheeto dust coated boneless wing selection, which you can do as either regular Cheetos or Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Flamin' Hot for sure.
I don't like Flamin' Hot Cheetos, so I chose the regular Cheetos. But here's the problem:
like spice with my wings.
That's fair. I did in fact choose to eat these Cheetos boneless wings, and I regret nothing.
They were good. They were delicious.
They were delicious. I do think they made me sick because I felt like I wanted to die when I was trying to finish them last night.
I don't know if it was the wings.
No. This was not at Applebee's. Well, this was when I was. Yeah, this is when I was. This was when I was eating my leftovers yesterday because I clearly did not eat anything when I was at Applebee's because I was too busy getting drunk. But yesterday when I was eating my leftovers, I was like, wow, leftover, these are not good.
Mm-hmm.
The flavor was still good, but like I was very overwhelmed by what was happening in my mouth.
Did they come with a dip?
They came with blue cheese.
Okay, good.
Because the menu said they came with either ranch or blue cheese, and then there was only one cup, and I was not asked, and I was like, if this is not blue cheese, I'm going to lose my mind. But information that I had already given Courtney is that my waitress at Applebee's was a friend of mine from high school, so it was blue cheese, and that was why there was no question.
Yes.
So that
all was well.
That also, for those of you who don't think of Applebee's as fine dining,
the entire world? You're talking to the entire world right now.
I think you're wrong.
Okay.
Because I have never had a bad experience at Applebee's.
Okay, but that doesn't make it fine dining.
I mean, I don't understand, like, what is the definition of fine? Because if fine is, like, good, high quality,
no.
Applebee's.
Also not true. Like, fine. Like, fine isn't okay. It's like okay dining.
And then it's fine dining.
No. Those are different things. No.
That's the only joy I have in my life right now.
Well, that's fine. Find joy in all the places.
This sweater and the fact that my socks have toe turtle on them, that's where I'm at.
You're doing great.
I'm doing great. All good things. I am going to a concert tonight.
Ooh, I knew that. I acted like I didn't, and then I realized I did know that indeed.
It is a Philharmonic chorus concert, and it is I think it's an opera. I don't know. I think it's an opera. I'm not 100% sure.
I heard it's pop up. I was like, that is a random pop up.
No, it's called Annalisa, and it is the story of Anne Frank. And so my guess is that it's in German because it's called Annalisa. And it is performed at a Jewish temple. So I'm pretty intrigued.
That is an interesting choice.
Yeah. So yeah, it might not. I mean, it must not be in German. Now that I'm thinking back to like the story of Anne Frank and how much they despise the German language because of everything, like in her diary, she talks about how like German is the least civilized language in the world, which is not true.
No, it's not. But that's
but
okay.
it's a strong opinion that she had every right to have.
Right.
My guess is that no. Now that I say that, I don't think it would be in German. That would seem kind of sacrilege.
It would, yes. Especially at a Jewish temple.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's probably not. Oh my, I'm so sorry. My dog is trying very hard to get into her food. Sadie.
Hey, Sadie.
Acting out today. She unplugged my mic in case you missed all the fumbling around.
I did see that. I just talked over it to try to.
That was good of you. Yeah.
Yeah, try to hide the fact. But those of you who are watching visually did in fact see it.
You did in fact see me struggle. But on a lighter note in my life, I am less struggling than last time.
Good. I feel like it's fair because only one of us can be struggling at a time.
That is true. I finally started recovering from whatever sickness I was having.
Okay.
It only took like 2 weeks, but I feel more like a person. I am sleeping through the night again, which is good.
Fantastic.
And it is good because everything is about to get insane in my life because not only is it the holiday, quote unquote, holiday season at the bar, so we are stupid busy. We have me and Nora, who I work with at the office, have been informed that we are now the A&R department at our office.
Oh, God.
For those of you who have not followed from the beginning, I do copyright management, metadata. I help with pitches for like sync. I manage our interns, and now I am also A&R. So that's a lot, but we can leave work at 4 now instead of 5. So give me more work and take an hour away. That's fine. Look, I'm not here to ask questions.
That is a lot. That's a lot happening.
I learned that on Thursday, which is why I left my makeup at the office yesterday because me and Nora decided we needed a drink when we got off. And I didn't send the interns' timesheets over. I didn't bring my makeup. I didn't do anything. I just left.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. I would have done the same thing. I mean, yesterday at work, I like progress reports came out, this week, which is like the halfway point. And if I had put all of the missing work for my students in as zeros instead of leaving it blank and missing, I think I would have had like 4 kids passing my class. I teach over 50 students. So I told them that this is the first time of the year, like it's the first progress report. It's getting used to it. It's a new year. I will give them packets of their missing work and they will have a week to get them back to me. And then from then on, that's not how we're doing this.
Right. Fair.
This will be their freebie, get to realize how seriously I take assignments. Especially because my 5th graders like have never had me before and they don't necessarily like, I don't know if their teachers last year made them turn in every single paper that they do, but I grade every single paper we do in class. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. So yesterday I'm printing all these papers. I did not finish all of the packets and I did not print anything for Monday. And then I said, you know what? I don't care. I'm going home and I'll do it on Monday. Like I just don't care about ruining my life to do things that that I'm not paid to do.
Yeah.
I get paid for a certain number of hours and I work well past those hours all of the time.
Exactly.
And I just need to stop.
I think that's a good plan. I support that 100%.
I saw something that was like, teachers are the only human beings who lose sleep over other people's kids.
Yeah.
I can only do so much.
Well, you know what would help with that? A little spiritual guidance / affirmation.
And you know what? I did not know what we were going to talk about when I chose our spiritual quote for the day. And I think it fits really well.
Yes.
Because today's spiritual affirmation is a quote from Megan Fox, which
Okay.
seems like a weird place to get spiritual affirmation from on the surface.
Yeah, no, she's
But the
got
quote,
some stuff going on.
the quote is, "Keep your head high and your middle finger higher."
There you go. There you go.
And I was like,
You tell him,
yeah,
Megan Fox.
hell yeah.
Well, today we are discussing the film Urban Legend. This is our Halloween episode because thrillers fall on Thursdays. Sorry about it. Halloween was 4 days ago. I don't care.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So I'd like to start by asking you before we get into it, do you have a favorite urban legend that you are?
So my actual favorite urban legend is not a scary one.
That's okay.
It is probably one of the dumbest things, but I fully lived by it in middle school. And that is the urban legend about jelly bracelets.
Which one?
So the jelly bracelets, the little skinny tiny.
No, I understand which
That-
bracelets.
Okay.
Which legend?
So there was this legend, and I put it in the category of urban legend because despite having acted like everybody believed it was true in middle school, I don't know a single person who acted on it ever.
Probably best.
Yeah. But the legend was that each bracelet's color represented a different sexual act, and if someone were to break your bracelets, they would then have to perform said sexual act with you. The worst of all being black, which was, in fact, sex. Because apparently that was the worst people could come up with at 12 years old.
Probably
I
best.
wore all of those bracelets all of the time, mostly black ones. And I did not ever have sex.
I wore those bracelets. I've heard a few different versions of that. I've heard this one.
Yeah.
And I can't recall all of them, but there were definitely a few different versions. I wore the bracelets because everyone wore the bracelets, but I never broke them. I was very very specific about that.
I never intentionally broke them. And I never followed through on any of the supposed things I was supposed to do. Said bracelets broke.
Good for you.
But yeah, that's my favorite urban legend because it is so dumb.
Yes.
So dumb.
And it is indeed. Well, for a very dark twist, my favorite urban legend is the story of the Black-Eyed Kids. Have you indeed heard this one?
I have not.
There's a lot of podcasts out there about it. I'm not going to tell you a lifelong story of it.
Okay.
It just is. There are these kids that have solid black eyes, and they come up to your door, whether it be a car door, a house door, a door, knock on it, and ask to be let in because whatever reason, they have to call their mom, it's raining, whatever. They have reasons. And if you let them in, basically you've set yourself up for a life of death and devastation, because every story, again, urban legend, but every story that's ever happened, the people that have let them in have gotten cancer or gotten brain tumors or just died immediately. They are kids that look mostly normal aside from their black eyes, and they usually hold their heads down so you don't see their eyes, and they're kids, so you think you can let them in, but they also talk weird. They talk in an old-fashioned sense and a little bit disjointed. So you can just tell that when you're talking to a 12-year-old that sounds like a 95-year-old man, that's kind of the gist. And it's very creepy, and all the stories about them are also very creepy.
Okay, but to be fair, I do teach 12-year-olds, and some of them sound like 95-year-old men.
No, they sound like disjointed too. It's not just
okay. It's not just weird language. Yeah. Okay.
Right. There's also weird language, but it's also out of order, or they don't understand how words work almost. Yeah. So that's my favorite. It's very creepy, and all the podcasts about it, I have to psych myself up to listen to them because they're always terrifying.
Okay. I've never heard that one.
Very fun. Very fun.
There's a couple that were in the movie that I've definitely heard. In fact,
in the
there's one in the movie that I didn't know was an urban legend.
Oh,
I thought it was real.
I can't wait to discuss it when we get there then. That said, let me tell you about this movie.
Fantastic.
So here's the thing. This movie came out on September 25th, 1998. So we are at the same time of Stargate.
We just talked. September 25th, 1998 was literally 2 weeks ago's episode.
Yes. Yes. So it was rated 5.6 out of 10, which in my opinion is fair because there is nothing I love more than a slasher film. And I Know What You Did Last Summer blows this one away.
Okay.
This is a great idea.
That's the thing.
Well executed.
I don't like slasher films. I like movies that make you think. And I enjoyed this movie much more than I thought I would because I wasn't sure who it was.
I also wasn't. But that is what a lot of the reviews said, where people who didn't love slashers ended up enjoying this movie more. And that's also because the director made it to where the scenes were less gory than they needed to be. He very purposefully made it to where you didn't see any murders per se. You saw the before and you saw the after a lot, and you didn't see like a lot of blood and gore, which I appreciate.
I loved it because there was only, I could think of one scene that I was like, oh, that's a lot. But it's because I have ankle phobias.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's fair.
So the one scene that I was like, oh, no. But it wasn't
a personal issue, not a...
It was a personal issue,
right.
not a blood amount issue.
Right. So because we've already covered this day, the song, movie, and book are all the same. You've just heard what they are, so I will not repeat them here. However, there's not a lot that happened on this day, so I'm just taking you back to 1998.
Because I was going to say, I told you, nothing happened on that day.
When I read this movie the first time, I thought it came out in 1996 because I can't read sometimes.
Okay.
It did indeed come out in 98. So at this time in life, we have the Bill Clinton scandal. It was earlier this year.
Yep.
He was also the Time Person of the Year, which is a choice.
A choice. But to be fair, the Time Person of the Year is not always a positive thing because Hitler was the Time Person of the Year.
Oh, okay.
It's just the person who makes the most cultural impact that year. Well, it's not a good or bad thing. And that's something people think all the time about, like Times Person of the Year is supposed to be an accolade, but it's not. It's the person who has had the largest cultural impact of the year. Aww. So Bill Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky scandal was the largest cultural impact of 1998. So that is why he did it. It wasn't because people were like, good for you.
Excellent. That is good to know. I did not know that. We are sending floppy disks and pagers on their way out. We are moving up in the technology world. We are starting to have new metal, starting with the band Korn, which is
I love Korn.
I hate Korn. Glad we're on the same page about that. In the gaming world, we are real new. We are still having Nintendo 64 versus PlayStation 1.
Heck yeah.
There are CDs everywhere. People are very into their CD cases. I was one of them.
Me too.
Yes. VCRs are still top notch at this point.
Yep.
And scrunchies were super popular, as they are.
I was going to say, scrunchies are totally back.
We've made it back around the planet. So this is the time of life we're living in when this movie comes out. Also, for reference, I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream have also been released before this movie. So
yeah, there was
made because those movies existed.
From what I remember of like end of season 1 of Stargate and beginning of season 2, like this year was a very interesting year for horror movies.
It was.
Yeah.
Very slasher centric.
I was 6 and I didn't watch scary movies at 6, so I don't remember that from having lived through it, just from having researched it.
I don't remember that from having lived through it either, because I was also 6. I was
actually 5, at this point you were still 5. Yeah.
At this point I was still 5. And so I also didn't watch horror movies, but I did read I Know What You Did Last Summer as a book when I was a small child and loved it. I didn't watch the movie till last year.
That is concerning to me.
I read I Know What You Did Last Summer and Phantom of the Opera in the same year.
Okay, but Phantom of the Opera, the book is not that scary.
No, but those were the two books I read at the, in the same time sequence, and they don't really go together.
They don't know.
Or at the same time in life, and
no,
that's when I read them. So
I've never read I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I read Phantom of the Opera as a freshman in high school.
Yeah, I read them all before high school. I don't remember when I read them, but before high school.
Good.
Our director is Jamie Blanks. He is known for Crawl Space, Valentine, and Urban Legend. He doesn't have a ton of credits because he mostly does music for films. He's composed for a lot of films. He's worked in music production for films.
Okay.
Speaking of I Know What You Did Last Summer, he had created a trailer for it to promote himself to work on it, and he didn't get chosen.
Oh no.
That's why he's doing this film, because he wasn't working on that film.
Right.
But he does have a few directorial and producer credits, just
okay.
limited.
I've never heard of him, so
I also hadn't. But I also haven't heard of any of these movies except Urban Legend. So, and our writer is Silvio Horton, who is known as the executive producer for Ugly Betty, The Chronicle, and Jake 2.0.
That's why. I was like, I've definitely heard that name, but I'm a big Ugly Betty girl.
Yes, so you've heard that name, and it's really sad he does not have very many credits because he shot himself at 45. So, unfortunately, we have a lot of not Soup's good news with the intro to this episode.
Wow, that just was yeah.
Yeah. And that said, we're going to start off with some of the cast members. I will not be discussing all of them because there's quite a few, but I'm going to discuss 6.
Okay, I was going to say, here's the thing. Speaking of Soup's bad news, Jared Leto's in this movie, which is already bad news.
And that's where I'm starting. Thank you for that transition. Yes, this is young Jared Leto. Before the world really knew a lot about him. We only vaguely knew him at this time. He plays Paul Gardner, the journalist student. For those of you who are somehow not familiar with Jared Leto, he is the lead for the band for 30 Seconds to Mars. That is one of his priorities. He has been, his recent things he's been in, Dallas Buyers Club, Suicide Squad, Requiem for a Dream, and House of Gucci. He's been in many more, but those were kind of the top things in the last so many years.
Yeah.
But I do have some fun facts about him because
is it about how many cults he started? Because
it does have that included.
Okay, good.
So don't worry.
Okay, good.
We're gonna start a little lighter.
Oh, okay.
He is in the Guinness World Record book twice. Once for having the longest concert run with a band. They had over 300 concerts in a row.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Also has the highest recorded score on Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Sega system, which is a very fun fact. I probably beat him. I should have figured out what my score was. I was really good at that one. PETA crowned him the sexiest vegetarian alive in 2014. He was an initial investor in Blue Bottle Coffee before it was bought out by Nestle.
I'm so sorry, but you just said PETA, vegetarian, and Jared Leto and 2014 all in the same sentence, and I think that might officially be the most things I hate in a single sentence at once.
That's fair. Very valid. Very valid. He was born in Bossier City, which is an hour outside of my hometown. It's right next to Shreveport, Bossier. That's like a type town.
Okay.
And he is rumored to like underage girls and run a cult. So not a Soup's happy ending for him either. There
are so many people that it's so-and-so said X, Y, and Z about them, and there's weird scandalous rumors about them, and I'm I don't know if I believe that because Hollywood's a weird place, but I don't know. There is zero part of me that doesn't fully believe that Jared Leto has started at least 3 cults in weird places in South America. Like, I'm so sure of it that it makes looking at him make me want to vomit.
We do not have full proof. It is all alleged, but we personally believe it. We're not telling you what to believe because that's could get us sued.
It could, if anyone ever listened to this podcast.
Yes. So, well, now that YouTube breaks up our episodes and tells people what we're talking about, maybe they'll start picking and choosing. So we also have Alicia Witt, who plays Natalie.
Okay.
She is known for the 1984 Dune, 88 Minutes, Urban Legend, and Vanilla Sky.
Okay.
I have not seen any of those movies, but I do know of those movies.
Mm-hmm. I think I started watching 88 Minutes once and then realized I don't like scary movies and stopped.
That'll do it. I feel like I should watch it. I forget who's in it, but it was somebody that I really liked.
Was that the one with Robert De Niro?
Maybe, but like whoever was on the front cover, he wasn't on the front cover.
Oh, okay.
Someone younger on the front cover. So she was also a couple of things she did in 2017. She was in the 2017 version of The Exorcist.
Okay.
So this is not her first horror trope. She also had roles in 2017 in both Supernatural and Twin Peaks. And I think personally, Supernatural is my next show when I finish and get caught up on all my AHS stuff. So
Okay.
Her mother, Diane, was also in the Guinness Book of Records from 1988 to 1996 for having the longest hair.
Weird.
And another sad ending to a person. Her parents died by carbon monoxide in 2021.
Ooh.
Yes, very recent.
Ooh.
Now, this next person, I'm not going to say too much about because we've talked about them, but I can't not talk about them. Next is Rebecca Gayheart, plays Brenda.
Oh,
So we've talked about her as Betty in Dead Like Me. We love her. God bless. Here's some fun facts. She was originally cast on Firefly and then changed out at the last minute. She played, again, I don't know if we've talked about any of this, so if we have, it's just a reminder for everyone.
Yes.
She played Shelby in Broadway's version of Still Magnolias.
That I don't think we talked about.
I don't think I knew that. And she is technically still married to Eric Dane. They filed for divorce and now they're just estranged, but they are still technically wed.
Didn't he just get engaged to somebody else, though?
It's possible.
That's weird. Although, to be fair, one of my cousins, I think, is still technically married, but he hasn't been with her in like 7 years.
Yeah. So what happens? Now, this next person, I don't know if the rest of the world cares as much. I'm going to talk about Michael Rosenbaum. He plays Parker Riley. I
don't know if anybody cares.
I adore him. He is known for Guardians of the Galaxy, Smallville, which I also haven't seen. I'm going to watch one day, and Sweet November. I don't know what Sweet November is, but
when Michael Rosenbaum appeared on stage, I took one of my only 7 notes for the entire episode, and it says, why did 90s slashers always have the best cast?
Truly, though.
Because that's all I could think about. But Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor might be one of the earliest times that I had a huge existential crisis about being in love with a villain.
Well, fun fact about that, he was the first actor to shave his head for Lex Luthor, not just wear a bald cap.
Mm-hmm.
He is also a huge New York Rangers fan.
That's true. I knew
and he has or had, I don't know if he still has it, a podcast called Inside of You, and I loved it. I used to listen to it all the time. He interviewed people. It was funny and witty, and it was such a good time.
I adore that man. I was supposed to meet him and Kristen Crook and Tom Welling in a Smallville reunion at the Comic-Con I went to in April, but they pulled out at the last minute, and I was devastated.
It's devastating. Sorry. But we're not ending on a sad note with him because I love him.
Yes.
We are going to go next to Loretta Devine.
Ugh,
Is how you say it? Divine?
it sure is. It's a Loretta Devine.
That's what I thought. She plays Officer Reese. She's known for Crash, Boston Public, Urban Legend, and
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy. She plays Adele Weber. Bless her heart. And also, she originated the role of Laurel in Dreamgirls on Broadway, which I did not know.
I did. I love her.
And she is a gem. And she also is known as Fabulosity. Did you know that? Because I did not know that.
I think I've heard that vaguely at some point, but I definitely couldn't have told you that off the top of my head.
Well, it was very strange. And then last but certainly not least, Joshua Jackson, who plays Damon Brooks. I know this man and have seen no things he's in. And I know everything about his life already.
Dawson's Creek and Fringe. Nothing else matters. Dawson's Creek and Fringe. And
he's also known for The Affair and Mighty Ducks D2.
Mighty Ducks D2. Yes. But no.
He is such a gem. It is saddening me that he plays such a terrible role.
Oh, yeah.
Such a terrible person.
His hair in this movie.
I mean, it's the 90s.
So literally, because for those of you who haven't figured out by my disdain just in mentioning him, I hate Jared Leto. And when Courtney told me that I had to watch a movie with Jared Leto in it, I was not thrilled. But then I put the movie on after, mind you, a traumatic experience trying to find the movie, because this movie is on Pluto TV. If any of you have the Pluto TV app for the PlayStation 4, you will know there's no search function on that app. Could not understand why. But that also meant that I spent 35 minutes trying to find this movie, and it wasn't there. So I then had to switch to my computer where I could search for it. When I finally got it started and was trying to get myself adjusted to watching this and preparing myself for how much I was going to hate it, because I hate slasher movies and I hate Jared Leto, so it was just not going to be a good time. The cast is scrolling on the screen, and it said Joshua Jackson. And then I sat down and I said, okay, we're good. We're good. I'm fine.
I need nothing else.
And then Joshua Jackson appeared on screen, and I saw his character, and I was like, really? Really? Okay.
So, fun fact, he was also filming, was it Cruel Intentions at the time? He had just finished. He kept his hair blonde in case he had to go back and do reshoots for Cruel Intentions because he had just finished it so quickly.
That is super respectable.
Yeah.
Fit the character really well, because
everything he does is perfect.
Yeah, I love Joshua Jackson.
Me too. And here's a few fun facts about him. He saved a drowning girl, starting there.
Of course he did.
His grandparents are opera singers in Ireland. And he auditioned for the role of Batman in the 2005 movie. It was beat up by Christian Bale, and Captain Kirk in the 2009 movie. I don't know who played him in 2009.
Chris Pine.
Oh, that one. That tracks. Okay.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I did not talk about the others yet. There are a few mentions of them throughout the film. We'll come to them as we will. I will mention Tara Reid plays Sasha, and I have spoken about her before because I met her and she's lovely. So.
And I've met her and she's lovely. And so I think that's one of the few celebrities that we've both met, but that we just are like obsessed with.
Yeah. So she's a gem.
I love her so much.
Yes, she's such a kind person.
The sweetest.
So here we go. I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up. The way we're going to do this, I'm going to be telling you a lot of stories and a lot of facts, because this movie is like I said, a 90s slasher. It's not a lot of, I'm not going to sit here and retell you the story because it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So we start off with a girl running out of gas and going to a gas station. And when she's on her way, there's a radio station playing a brief moment of replacing birth control with baby aspirin. And that is our first urban legend we come to. It is right off the bat. And there's a few different, a lot of urban legends have a few twists and turns on them that are just like twisted a bit. So this main one that people think about is that there's a mom and a daughter, and the daughter starts taking her mom's birth control and replacing with baby aspirin. And her mom finds out when it's too late and has already become pregnant. There's also like a weird twisted one that I couldn't find all of the details on, where they say like taking aspirin makes you pregnant. Again, all urban legends, not real life.
Reason I don't, that one is like not as far-fetched to me as some of the other ones, is because I do actually know a story, and it is a story. It's not a legend. I know personally have talked to all of the people involved, but I can't discuss how I know that because of a child's ADHD medication being replaced by aspirin and the school nurse finding out.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised, and I'm sure there have been plenty of similar instances.
The twist on that is who was doing the replacing and how fucked up that whole story was, but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, so people do that.
Yeah.
But the whole like, oh, I didn't find out until I was pregnant. I feel like that is you would find out earlier.
I feel like you'd find out earlier, and then the whole thing that like taking aspirin makes you pregnant, obviously.
Yeah.
So like there's some untrue elements, but there is still a little bit of truth, which is kind of how urban legends go. So, is what it is. So I don't know a lot about the production of this film, and I do want to say this is very cliche, and I love it when they put happy songs when something bad's about to happen.
Yeah.
It's very cliche. It gives away the plot. You know something's coming, but I love it. So they play Total Eclipse of the Heart here, and nothing makes me happier. And I will say, so I know we talked about Jamie Blanks does a lot of the music for stuff now.
Yeah.
Christopher Young did the music for this movie, but Jamie Blanks did have some say in it. And so he gave him he mostly had some say in the compositions because Christopher Young did a lot of new compositions for the instrumental scenes. Otherwise, he picked the music. But I always like that. And I know it annoys some people. I know it's so cliche, but it's just one of my favorite things. It's why I love a slasher. They're cliche.
That's fair.
And they're just fun.
That is fair.
Yeah. So we see this girl run up to the gas station, and the creepiest guy comes out to pump her gas. And at this point, I always think of this whenever I watch these type of movies, because I had never had anyone pump my gas till I moved to New York when I was driving through Jersey. So like me and my mom didn't know what was going on.
That's the thing. I have had people pump my gas at specific places. Like if you, in New York State, if you get gas on an Indian reservation, they will pump the gas for you there because the reservation laws are different. And there's a couple places that will have like self-service gas stations, but then the gas is more expensive. But in New Jersey, it is illegal to pump your own gas.
Yes.
And I did not know this until my best friend in college was from New Jersey, and we were driving somewhere in college, and she was like, oh, I always forget I have to get out of my car. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And that's how I found out that I was in college when I found out that in New Jersey, you don't pump your own gas. And now since then, there have been times when I'm leaving New York and I specifically drive in a way that I exit the city into Jersey so that I can get gas in Jersey and doesn't pump it for me.
That is very accurate reason. I learned in 2018 when I was in my last semester of law school. So I had no idea that was a real thing. I just assumed everyone had to pump their own gas forever. But yeah.
So but the funny thing is I had the same thought. I go, where is this? That she's waiting for someone else to pump her gas.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not like super common. But yeah. So this guy comes up to pump her gas, and he tells her the credit card company's on the phone for her. And I immediately, I know this is an urban legend story. I know what urban legend they're about to tell me. I still got the creeps. I was like, he's going to kill her. He's going to take her inside and kill her, and she's going to fall for it.
See, I immediately was like, misdirect. Until she got out of the car and went inside. And then I was like, ma'am.
So I knew the urban legend going in of the killer in the backseat. And I heard that one quite a bit ago because I've always checked my back seats when I drive in my car because I'm a nervous person sometimes. And I'd heard the story before, and it's been told. I mean, this story's been told in so many different ways.
Right.
Someone got into the car while you were at home. Someone got into the car while you were at the gas station. Someone but it's different how people tell you too. There's the story, the trope of this is like the traditional one that she goes to the gas station, the gas attendant gets her out of her car, takes her inside and said, do you know there's someone in your back seat? And they call the police and take care of it. I mean, much happier ending than this one.
Yeah.
But then there's also the trope of, which is the one they use in American Horror Story, where someone is flashing the lights because every time they see someone pop up in the back seat, they flash the lights and they go back down. And it's just, this one's always been such a creepy one to me. And I think it has a mix to do with like thinking of like phantoms and ghosts. They have the like, there's the horror movies that have the trope of like, it's a ghost figure in your back seat that comes out of nowhere, like a demon. And then there's the serial killer that's like, there's so many options.
Yeah.
And like, it could be real. I mean, I've always had tiny enough cars that it could not be real. I would notice.
Right.
But like,
well, that's the thing is I have a small car and my backseat is always messy, so I would for sure know.
Yeah.
Like,
very true. Yeah, and so usually the killer is either a serial killer or a mental patient that has escaped. That's usually what they use.
Yeah.
My favorite that I just learned about today, twist on this, is that that there are people in the middle of the road trying to stop her, and they keep showing up no matter where she goes. And it turns out that the killer that's in the back seat, this is all of the victims that he's killed, and their ghosts have come back to warn her. And I just think that's so kind.
Yeah, but that's I would be terrified.
Isn't it? I mean, yeah, it'd be creepy, but like, they're trying to save your life. Had you heard of this one before?
I had.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is one of the first moments that I liked the visuals whenever he first shows up in the back seat with the lightning flashing behind him.
Yeah.
Again, very typical, very traditional for this type of
scene.
Really good.
My favorite moment in the term of this urban legend was actually the gas station attendant giving it away, because I didn't know what to expect with this movie, and I knew it was going to be based on urban legends, obviously, but like I didn't know if there was like an overarching plot or if it was going to be more like in like Final Destination where Final Destination where there's like different deaths happening and they're all kind of connected but not really. And so when the gas station attendant yelled and I realized he wasn't connected to it, he was just trying to tell her, I was like, oh shit, okay, I can get behind this.
I know. I didn't know if they were going to tell us in that moment that there was someone in the back seat, or if we were just going to figure out when they killed her. And I liked the choice they made to have him say it was too late.
Because then there was still that the anticipation of you knowing she was going to die, but still her not figuring it out. I appreciated that.
I agree. So there are definitely this movie was rated 5.6, and I think that's mostly fair, but there were still some really good elements.
Agreed. There were definitely things that I did not hate.
Also, looking at the reviews, there were people that rated it 1 out of 10 and people that rated it 10 out of 10. So, this movie is all over the place.
Yeah. No, I would say solidly around a 6 would be pretty ideal. I think that, it was good. I enjoyed watching it. I didn't, want to turn it off, but will I watch it again? Probably not.
Yeah. So, the next thing we come across, we're at the university. And these 4 dumb college kids, we have Parker and Paul and Brenda and Natalie hanging out in the common area, and they start talking about the story of a campus killer because they're referencing everything that's already happened. Did you know what was being referenced here? Because it's urban legend-esque, but it's also serial killer related.
No.
So they were referencing the Richard Speck murder.
Oh, okay.
because
Okay.
that's why the fraternities were involved, and
Yeah,
he
okay.
killed like the nurses in the like sorority house or whatever it was, or made them dress up as nurses and killed them, whatever.
Yeah. Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's what's happening here, and we learned that these are like the most obnoxious type of people, in my opinion.
Oh no, it's pretty accurate.
So I love Michael Rosenbaum, but Parker Riley,
Sucks.
the worst human.
Yeah.
Truly, like even Jared Leto's character, I liked better as a character. Like I liked the character personality better.
Oh yeah,
But
no, but you were supposed to. He wasn't supposed
I
to be like,
know, but I just like I. It's hard for me to look past Jared Leto when I watch a Jared Leto film, and
yeah.
I felt like I could do that here, um,
Mm,
which was good.
yeah,
I
good for
guess.
him because I agree. I did
Yeah.
not hate Paul.
We have Natalie, who's
I
just
did
kind of
I did hate like that there was a lot of names that were the start like that were like so fucking cliche though. Like Natalie and
oh yeah,
Parker and Damon
Brenda.
and like Brenda. I was like, this is so 90s. It makes me want to vomit.
It is. It is. Um, Keep that in mind because I have a fun fact about names when we get to our trivia at the end.
Okay.
So we have this crew of people, and the next thing we have is the legend I learned about first, Bloody Mary. Did you play this as a child?
No, because I was so fucking terrified.
I did it one time because they made me,
Okay.
and I was terrified for the next 2 weeks that I was going to die because we did it at my house.
So before we move on to Bloody Mary, I do want to talk about the fact that I genuinely think that every college campus has a murder story.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true.
And some of them are true and some of them are not. Obviously, there have been murders on college campuses. That sucks.
Right.
My the way that they were talking about this one building that nobody talked about that was boarded up and everything, it reminded me of my college campus murder story. And so my school, my college, Nazareth College, was a Catholic university until the 70s. And then it like left its affiliation with the church and became a co-ed school. And it's still called Nazareth. It still has like a beautiful church on it, but it's not a religious school anymore. But when it was an all-girls school and it was run by nuns. And there is this story that a nun got pregnant by one of the priests, found out she was pregnant, and hung herself on the school or in one of the dormitory buildings.
Is that a traditional urban legend? Because I've heard this story before.
It might be, but the reason why at my school it was even creepier is because this was supposedly happened on the fourth floor or the third floor, no, the fourth floor of the dormitory hall in Madai. No one lived like when I was there, the fourth floor nobody lived there. Like those rooms were not rooms anymore. The only time I was ever up there was during a haunted house. And of course, the people who ran the haunted house fully went with it.
Of course.
And we have a tunnel system because, old school colleges in the Northeast, snow. We have a tunnel system. And in the tunnel system, under that building, there's a painting of a woman and a baby.
That is so creepy.
It's the most messed up thing.
I hate that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's like the traditional college campus myth, but my school went so hard with it.
So that was not our college campus myth, but I have heard that story before for sure.
Yeah. But so the way that the building was like boarded up, I was like, that reminds me so much of my fucked up like nun hanging herself story that I'm going to have to share that.
Yeah. Ugh. I hate that. Yeah.
I love how you were like so with me until I got to the painting.
I no, that's my least favorite part. 100% my least favorite part. Ugh. So let's go back to another story that's better. Um,
Bloody Mary is better than the Nun.
yes. Yes, it is. And Rebecca Gayheart is a little spicy. She, for being kind of a flat character for the film, most of it, she has little spicy moments. She's just yelling for Bloody Mary. And their rule here was that you had to say it 5 times. This is very like subjective.
I've always heard 3.
I've always heard 3. When I looked it up, it said 13. So like, right. So I guess anywhere from 3 to 13, depending on where you heard this story or where you were. I don't know. If you've heard different numbers, please tell us, because I've only ever heard 3.
Yeah.
And like we were told, so the way we did it was you had to go into a place with a mirror, close the door, turn off the lights, say Bloody Mary 3 times, and like spin in a circle or something.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional is you walk backwards up the stairs with a candle saying Bloody Mary towards the mirror.
Oh, yeah. I've always heard a bathroom mirror.
Yeah, we did it. I think it usually is a bathroom mirror. That's where we did it. So I thought I was going to die. But it turns out that Bloody Mary could be benign or malevolent. She's not always a bad spirit when she comes, which is not a thing I knew as a child. I thought it was bad all the time.
I think I might have heard that she might not be bad, but then I also like basically people were like, yeah, she might be good, but also like if you wake her up in a bad mood, and I was like, I don't want to risk that.
Right now, I don't need to take any chances. Just let her sleep. So some examples they say could be what created this legend is, of course, Queen Mary the First, or like, I mean,
Mary Queen. Yeah, no. Queen Mary, not Mary Queen of Scots.
Yeah.
2 different person.
Mary the First. Who are you gonna? Who else would you think of? Like, obviously, she's the first one.
Yeah.
While her name's not Mary, Elizabeth Bathory.
Okay.
Which also makes sense. She killed a lot of people, a lot of blood, a lot of torture.
Yeah.
Or Mary Worth, which is a unknown figure, but has been associated with someone who would kill people as they tried to escape through underground railroads.
Okay.
And she's also synonymous with someone who burned in the Salem witch trials. So like her name is used for both instances.
Okay.
And those are kind of where people are like, this could be where it came from. But it's been around.
I think the Queen Mary, people only say that because her nickname was Bloody Mary, not because she's actually like associated with anything to do with the actual legend.
Right. No. Well, they're not saying any of these people are associated with the legend. They're saying the legend happened because these people were quote unquote Bloody Marys, and they don't know where like people decided it came from, which of the Marys.
That's fair.
Yeah. But they're saying it came after all of these people.
Oh, of course. But I think it came long enough after Queen Mary that it wouldn't have been her. It's just that her name was Bloody Mary. So people were like, oh, Bloody Mary must be the queen.
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. So then we go back to Natalie going home. She walks into her dorm room where her roommate is like having a thing with a guy, and I've never lived in a dorm. I would have wanted to kill someone. I would not have reacted well. She reacted much less than I would have, let's say.
I have lived in a dorm, and I have brought boys home to the dorm, and I have had my roommate bring boys home to the dorm, but there was always communication.
I think that's important. Communication is important. But this seemed, unfortunately, very common and not a lot of communication for her.
Yeah, no.
So that's unfortunate. So next we kind of get to like the crux, I guess, where all of the urban legends start being discussed actually, as opposed to just happening. We go to the Professor Wexler, who I guess is teaching a class on urban legends. I kind of missed the name of the class. I don't even know if they said it.
Well, it was a class on urban legends, yeah.
I mean, I assumed so based on the topics.
Yeah.
And so he's talking about a few different ones. So he mentions The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, which is another one of the earliest films, horror films I watched, was When a Stranger Calls. that used that trope. I mean, it's always did you check the children? Like, it's always a babysitter. It's always, did you check the children? I have not seen any deviation from that.
I mean, that's what Halloween is.
Yeah. So, like, it's not, I haven't seen a lot of but I watched When a Stranger Calls first.
No, but I'm saying, like, that is, I mean, Halloween. Halloween is the quintessential horror movie, and that is the urban legend that it's based on. Yeah,
exactly. And like, I was looking at, like, when I was looking it up first, I was looking up each urban legend to make sure if there was like a lot of deviation, to like pick up weird facts about it. Every one of these is on Snopes, which was very fun. All fact checked. Don't worry, Snopes has checked our urban legends.
Oh, good.
But there were like 15 movies that used this trope that were like big movies. Like,
yeah, because it's the easiest one.
It's so easy. It's so crazy.
Because like Professor Wexler was saying, like, the fundamental message is, like, don't trust people with your kids. Like, don't trust.
Right.
Like, and as a mother, like, you're always worried. Like, even as like an animal mother, like, and with Sadie and when the kids try to pick up Pip, I hover.
Yeah.
I hover. When you have to pick out like a new walker or babysitter, like for Sadie, you meet them ahead of.
Yeah, I make them meet me ahead of time. I make them let me inside of their house.
Yeah. No, like, even with pets, we get like that. So, like, could you imagine, like, the idea of something happening to your kids when you trusted them with another human? Like, of course, that's like that goes to the root of like human fear.
Yeah.
And all urban legends do are prey on like the fear that we already have about the unknown.
And a lot of them have some type of truth to them already.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been kidnappings. There have been people who have broken into houses and hurt children. Like, it's not an unheard of event.
Right.
It's just they've made it such an urban legend trope that this one's specific. Although Brenda does say it happened in her hometown, even though.
Well, and then he says everybody has a story about it happening in their hometown, but like, do you actually know that?
Yeah.
And that's true. Like, I think about some of the things that I've heard of, like, oh, well, like, I know somebody that knows somebody that happened to. And I'm like, but
did it actually happen then? If I
right.
It, yeah. And then we go to the next one because this professor's kind of a jerk. He's like, well, we're going to go ahead and demonstrate this then. And there is a urban legend that Pop Rocks, and if you have Pop Rocks and soda together, because of what Pop Rocks are made of, it'll make your stomach explode. And so Brenda would not eat them. But for the longest time, people, the kid that was on the Life cereal commercials, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Mikey.
Yeah, everyone said that little Mikey died from Pop Rocks and soda. That was like one of the biggest urban legends that like circulated. No. I never heard that. I mean, I know who little Mikey is, but I didn't.
Well, it was proved false before we were old enough to like know about that stuff.
Right.
Like,
it was almost immediately proved false. It was
yeah.
And so Damon, was it Damon that went up there next?
Yeah.
So Damon goes up there and he's like, I'm going to do it. And then he does this whole dramatic scene, acts like he's dying, spits everything up, and then he's just faking it all. But this is also around the where we get the first mention of a killer. Now we're looking at, Natalie's going back home. I was like, this dorm is so super 90s. You have your stereotypical goth roommate who's on the internet all the time. That's dial up because we don't have like other internet right now.
Yep.
And it's wild. And they just like yank out the internet. She listens to her phone calls. And this is also where we find out that Natalie and Michelle were like super close. Michelle's the one who was in the car in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so Damon comes by to like invite her out to somewhere, and he's like, well, we could just talk. We don't have to go, blah, blah, blah. And I put, Damon is such a liar.
Oh, yeah.
And I was not incorrect. So this is also where I started kind of deviating from how I felt about the movie, because they go out in the middle of the woods like you do. And I was like, a good slasher film is like known for its like unoriginality. It's known for its clichéness. But the fact that this was a horror film that also tried to have a like serious and like thought-provoking storyline,
Yeah.
should have done more with the story. And like Natalie was such a flat character to me.
Oh,
like
she was awful.
she
awful.
had no personality. She was
I didn't at one point, like, because we're not going in detail about the movie, and at one point later in the movie, she like realizes that everybody who is being attacked is related to her somehow, and she's like, why me? And I was like, that's a good fucking question, because so far you have shown me no reason why anyone would target you. You are so boring.
You're so bland and have no personality. Like,
yeah.
So, this is where we get into our next urban legend, which is one of my least favorite because I don't like hanging stories. But this is the boy hanging from a tree.
See, I've heard this story slightly differently. When I was told the story, it was different, and it was the Pigman Road myth.
That is considered a separate.
Is it? Because it's the same thing. It really is.
It is, but it is considered a separate urban legend. Because the Pigman also like has a few other elements of things he does sometimes, and with the hanging, it's not always like. It's pretty much the same, but it's like the Pigman's there sometimes.
Okay, yeah, because what I heard was the boyfriend disappears, goes to the bathroom, comes back, and she hears the dripping of the blood on the car, not the feet on the top of the car. And I like so that.
That is one of the.
Yeah, and that one makes me less uncomfortable because it's not hanging; it's a body. Be in the tree, but the blood dripping is different than the swinging of the hanging, because I too do not do hanging.
Yeah. So typically the body is dead before they hang it above the car. It's
right.
And a lot of the traditional versions of this.
Yeah.
Legend. However, we learn how demented this killer is because they hang the body above the car and attach it to the car. So he only dies if she drives away. And that was when I was like, oh, this is fucked up. Because when I realized that he was still alive hanging up there, I was like, yeah, it was because I just assumed he was going to be dead because that's how it goes. That's how the legend goes. Yeah. And nope, it's not the way it went. So she goes to the police station naturally, and they tell her they arrested the gas station attendant. So no worries, there's no killer. She's like, no, there for sure is. And they're like, no, it's fine. We're going to go check on it. And they go, the car's missing. Of course. So nothing's there. You can't tell. And then no one believes her about Damon. They're like, he's on a ski trip or snowboard. I don't remember. Some kind of snow holiday.
He's on a bachelor trip to a ski lodge.
There you go. And I didn't keep up with that detail very well. It didn't feel as important.
It wasn't. It really wasn't. To be honest, most of the details of this movie, not important.
Exactly. That's why I'm not really going into them, except for when they're related to their urban legend.
Yeah.
So no one believes him. And then we go to Natalie and Brenda are going through the urban legends because she's like, we got to look into this. And they briefly flash over one that comes in the next scene.
Oh no, it wasn't Brenda, was it? It was Sasha who was with her at that moment.
Was it?
Yeah, because then she found the Kama Sutra and she was talking about all the things her and Parker were going to do.
You're right. So they flash through a couple that we'll come back to eventually, but they are the two that were in the book were Are You Glad You Didn't Turn the Lights On? And the high beam one. So she does indeed find a Kama Sutra book that she says is one of the earliest editions. One of the earliest editions is from like 5,000 years ago. So it's clearly not, but that's fine. Yeah. Movies make up rules. And then we go to what I anticipated being one of the creepier scenes. And it wasn't as creepy just because I know how creepy this legend gets. I was a little concerned.
Yeah.
She goes home and thinks that her roommate is engaging in sex again, when instead she is being murdered brutally. And she puts her headphones on and goes to sleep. She wakes up to the blood on the wall that says, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights?" And there are so many versions of this that are like very similar. Someone in your room is murdered, usually before you get home, and they're trying to be quiet. They're coming to get a sweater. They're coming to get their homework. They're just coming to grab something or just coming to go to bed, and they don't turn on the lights so they don't wake up their roommate. And their roommate's already dead. But the sign comes up because someone's still there. And it shows how close they were to being murdered. Mm-hmm. Now, this creepy version that I just heard of today is there was a woman who lived alone. She had a cat. Nope, she had a dog. And she's laying in bed and she starts hearing something. And she reaches down to pet her dog and it licks her. And she's like, okay, great, no problem.
But it was the person who was murdering her who licked her.
The tagline to this urban legend is humans can lick too.
Oh.
That's what's left on the wall instead of aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights?
Oh.
And there are multiple versions of how she finds this dead animal. It's been multiple different, like sometimes she finds her husband, she thinks it's an animal, all these different things. But
no.
Yeah. No. I hate that. I hate that so much. I
hate that. It now makes me second guess every time I've ever licked someone.
Don't lick people.
Sometime the other day I licked Dan and he was like, what are you doing? Because he just like had his arm around me like we were laying on the couch and I just licked him and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, creepy. I was like, I'm licking you. And he was like, no, I could tell that, but why? I was like, because you are mine. I am licking you to claim you as mine. I don't, what?
That's just weird. That's not creepy. So it's fine. That's okay.
Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, I don't just like lick strangers.
Right. That's important. That's important. So now we come back and Jared Leto, I don't even remember what was happening, but my next note, I don't think he actually did anything in the film, but I put Jared Leto as such a sleaze.
Yeah, that's true. I
don't know if that was just a blanket statement.
Yeah, but, maybe.
Then, so she starts telling him about this story. Because they get caught going through the professor's office looking for like urban legend stuff and trying to figure out like if it was real or not, all this, blah, blah. And she comes across and then she gets taken in and they're like, the principal's talking to her and he's like, you have reckless endangerment on your record and Jared Leto, you're now fired. Like this was just bad. Yeah. And so she tells him why she has reckless endangerment on her record. And it's because her and Michelle were recklessly driving down the road and they were like flashing their beams at this guy.
Okay, so this is what happened. She and her friend decided that they were going to recreate an urban legend.
Right.
And that urban legend is that when gang leaders are trying to do initiation, they make people in the gang drive around without lights on so that when people flash their high beams to tell them that they have no lights on, then they chase them down and kill them, and that's their initiation into the gang. That is the urban legend that I didn't realize it was a legend. I genuinely...
Oh, yeah.
Like, the moment when Sasha was like, that one's true, I never flash my lights at anybody. I am that person. I have always been terrified to flash my lights at somebody with their lights off because I thought it was true.
Yeah.
That's that. And I mean, and I live in a place where there is gang activity. So like, I genuinely, like, I never realized that was an urban legend. That's the one that I was like, there's one that I didn't know was an urban legend. Yeah. And so her and Michelle had their lights off. Somebody flashed their lights at them. And then they chased him down, like being assholes, pretending that they were going to do a gang initiation. And then he slid off the road.
Yes. And that was the moment that I knew this was a revenge killing and not a tradition, like not just a random serial killer. And that's why all of her friends are dying.
Which is fair, except for the fact that she's boring as fuck.
Right. So we also learn at this moment, when we get back, that Wexler was the sole survivor at the Stanley Massacre. That did indeed happen.
See, here's the thing. So Wexler being the sole survivor and the current dean being the same dean that covered it up was such a good misdirection, because I genuinely, like, obviously revenge killing because she's a terrible person and has reckless endangerment, but also like the 25th anniversary of this murder house and the only survivor being there to teach urban legends. Like, it was that misdirect was probably the only reason the movie was actually genuinely enjoyable, because it was like, oh, they had such a good concept.
Exactly.
It just wasn't necessarily executed well.
I think their twists tended to work out, but they just didn't keep the flow through the whole movie.
Right. Yeah.
So then we go to the one that bothers you the most. Oh, but we will learn this about him, and then he goes to get in his car and immediately checks the back seat because he knows that these urban legends are indeed real.
Yeah.
Really happening. And this is where we get to your uncomfortable moment where his ankles are slashed and he is run over and stabbed into the tire slashing prongs on the ground.
Yeah. I have such an Achilles tendon issue, and like I am so terrified because like if you rip your Achilles tendon, you lose movement in your foot like forever. And as a dancer, like that has always been my biggest fear. So I have just an unnatural reaction to anybody cutting their ankles, and the angle with which they showed the guy popping out from under the car, I was like,
yes. Very so then we have like 20 minutes left, 25 minutes. So then we go back to the party that's happening, and they're playing Love Roller Coaster by Ohio Players, which in itself has always been an urban legend because there's a girl that screams in the middle of the song.
Yeah.
And people have speculated over what it was. I believe they just like inserted a sound from something else, but people have said that they've inserted it as a sound from a 911 call that was very
which was what they said in the movie.
Right. And then they've said that like it was one of the like dancers or one of the other like one of the girlfriends of the band members like that was murdered or stabbed. And so like they've had a few different things. But because of all of this nonsense happening and everything being insane, Jared and Natalie kiss. And what am I skipping to? Oh, and then we have a brief interlude with a very unfortunate scene that I'm glad went the way it did. I thought it was going to be much more grotesque.
So did I.
Parker is on the phone, and the guy is like, I'm in the house. I don't know what he said. Did you check?
Parker was like, oh, how cliche. The stranger's in the call is coming from within the house. And he's like, actually, this isn't the babysitter urban legend. This is the dog in the microwave.
Right. And so I was like, I'm going to lose my mind if we see this. But it turns out we just saw the microwave and blood, which is like, great, but better as a viewer than
well, because I thought he was going to go into the microwave and the microwave was going to actively explode while he was in the kitchen, and like he was going to die by like shrapnel. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, very Final Destination, but the woman doesn't die in the dog in the microwave story,
which is fair, but also at this point I figured we were escalating.
Yeah, so now we kind of are. We're going into all of our murders at once. Sasha is trying to do her show, and her producer, is taken out and murdered, and the killer starts chasing her. She's screaming for her life, which is meant to be a reflection back on the Love
song.
Song, because they can hear it through the speakers. And when she's screaming and running, Natalie sees her be killed, and then her and Paul just take off.
Yeah.
And they grab Brenda, and the three of them get in the car and drive to a gas station. Paul goes inside to call the police, and they start hearing a phone ring. And so Brenda and Natalie get out, and they go to the back, and they open the trunk. And it turns out that Professor Wexler is dead in the trunk, which is fun. So, do not unplug my microphone again. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. So they scream and they're like, "Oh my God, Paul's the killer!" And I was like, "Jared Leto's a creep." That tracks.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, he was my first suspect.
He was also my first suspect. I'm sorry, she's tangled now. Oh my gosh.
Sadie, come on.
So So this is when I was like, is Jared Leto the killer? Or did the janitor set him up? because as they go away, she's running and the janitor picks her up and drives her off and the headlights start flashing. And I was like, oh no, they're gonna die. And it was rough. And then so then Natalie hears screaming from the abandoned building. And she goes in and starts finding all of the dead bodies in horrific ways. And she's confirmed all of her suspicions. Like, everyone who she said died actually died.
Yep.
And it's just been insane. And the next thing we know, she's knocked out and tied to the bed. And we learn our killer is Brenda. And I thought it was such a good move to make Rebecca Gayheart such a flat character through this whole thing, because then it made it so much more surprising at the end, because I wasn't paying attention to her. Like, I didn't care about her aside from the fact that I liked her as an actress. Like, I didn't care what was happening. To
be fair, the only character that I really did care what was happening was Jared Leto, even though I hate Jared Leto. Like, it was not well done in that case.
Yeah. And it turned out my suspicions were right. It was a revenge killing because the guy that they ran off the road was her soon-to-be fiance. And she was in love with him, and it was tragic. So she plays a great crazy person, and our last legend of this film is that she attempted the kidney heist, which is where someone kidnaps you, cuts out your kidney and sells it on the black market.
Yeah.
Or some other organ.
Yeah.
Very straightforward. However, Paul walks in and saves everything. Again.
Yes.
Truly.
Yes.
And we learned that she was trying to frame Professor Wexler because she was like, it's great, he died. He's the perfect scapegoat because he's been teaching all these urban legends. He survived the massacre. There's no way people aren't going to believe it was him. Yeah. And I was like, that is kind of genius.
That's kind of genius, actually.
Like, that's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah. She makes her way smarter than I would have thought her character was.
Yeah. And then Officer Reese busts in after shit on him, and they're all just in this little scuffle for a bit. And she's like push out the window, and like they go to the car and they're driving off and they think everything's gonna be good. And then she pops up as the hatchet man in the back of the seat, the dialogue there was actually amazing because they were like, well, if this is an urban legend, what's the twist? They literally said that before she killed them. Right. Which is one of the reasons they say like this movie is a much more aware Scream. Yeah. Like in the Scream films, they're like aware of what's going on and they kind of know they're in essentially a horror film. Yeah. But in this film, they haven't quite figured everything out. And so I did put at this point, I said, Jared Leto's surprisingly a good actor in this film. And I said, I guess that's why he has a successful cult. But they're driving off, they're fighting Brenda off, and he slams on the brakes and she flies through the window into the lake, into the river. It's like, what a convenient way to die. And our last scene is new kids at school telling the urban legend of what happened when Brenda shows up. And she's like, let me tell you what really happened. And that's the end. I do have a few fun facts. Do you want to give me some last minute thoughts while I'm getting to my fun facts?
I would say, I think, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think I was going to enjoy the movie at all, and I actually did. There obviously are flaws, but it was not bad. I'm trying to think. I liked the amount of misdirects that there were. I don't think I cared for the thing is, in a horror movie, you kind of have to care about the final girl. Right. Like, you want them to survive, and I didn't care about anybody surviving in this movie. Like, actually, the character that I was the most upset about their death was Damon, even though he was kind of a dick. Yeah. like when he died, I was like, oh, and I guess I love Joshua Jackson, but like when he died, I was like, oh, they're killing people so close to her so early that I feel like I'm not going to be emotionally invested in anyone.
Right. Yeah.
And so I had some, but there was one fun fact that's probably on your trivia that I noticed and I took a note of it, and we all saw that I did not take notes on this movie. But when Damon goes to take her to the woods before he dies, he tries to turn his car on and the car like freaks out and has all these weird like wiring issues, and the radio starts playing and it's the Dawson Creek theme song.
Yes.
And I was like,
yes, it is.
That was my favorite. That was my favorite trivia moment of the entire episode or movie or whatever this is.
Let me tell you 13 more.
Fantastic.
In 10 minutes. Full disclosure, I have work in like 45 minutes, so I'm just like busting this out so I can go get ready.
Yeah.
So Danielle Harris, which I have a friend named Danielle Harris, plays Tosh and the goth roommate.
Okay.
She was so thrilled that she could smoke in this role as a goth person because she did smoke in real life, but she didn't think about the fact that when you shoot a movie, you shoot the same scene multiple times. And she had to smoke so much in this film that she ended up quitting smoking after the film.
Good. Fantastic. I love it.
So Sarah Michelle Gellar had actually accepted the role of Sasha, which Tara Reid played.
Yeah.
But due to a last minute conflict with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she was unable to actually play the part.
Which is fine because I love Tara Reid.
I also love Tara Reid. Yes, as we've discussed.
Yes.
So the very first car, the SUV that Michelle's driving, the very last car that they were driving was meant to be a Land Rover.
Yeah.
But it ended up having to be like an Explorer because when they tested it, you can't swing an axe in a Land Rover.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And they did use real axes in most of these scenes.
Oh, fantastic. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They made a comment in the final scene about, they're like, oh, I think Brenda ended up being that Noxema girl, which was a nod to Rebecca Gayheart, who indeed was basically Noxema girl.
Yeah. I love that.
Melissa Joan Hart and Reese Witherspoon both turned down the role of Natalie.
Oh man, they both would have been way better.
Right. This is one of the first films to feature the blue Pepsi can because it was new in this time.
Cool.
So Professor Wexlin, many of you may know his name. He is played by Robert Englund. And in the horror film world,
Freddy.
He plays Freddy Krueger. And so they had a lot of like throwbacks to like traditional horror. Speaking of the gas station attendant is Brad Dourif, who voiced Chucky.
Oh, okay. I obviously voice is not as recognizable as face, but yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen Chucky, so like I wouldn't have even like. I mean, I know he changes his voice for Chucky, but still.
Yeah.
And fun fact: Brad Dourif and Danielle Harris, who plays Tosh, go on to play father and daughter in both Halloween from 2007 and Halloween 2 from 2009.
Okay.
Jared Leto has basically disowned the film and refuses to talk about it in interviews. There was like, he made like a joke about it one time in 2003 when someone asked him, and has basically never talked about it since.
Probably because he was actually good in it and he's not.
Right.
Just kidding. He's actually a decent actor, except for that he decided he has to be method. But like he's so method in Suicide Squad that like maybe he just like killed people for this movie and that's why he doesn't talk about it.
Very true.
Fuck that guy.
There's the school's motto is written on the front of it during the beginning, and it's in Latin, but it translates to "the best friend did it." I know, that's one of my favorites.
Oh my god. I didn't even, because I wasn't even paying attention.
I don't speak Latin, so I wouldn't have even noticed.
I mean, I know enough.
Yeah. Also, the very last scene, Brenda is wearing a ribbon around her neck, and while it is not green, it is a reference to the short horror
Green
story.
ribbon. That's my favorite.
Yes, the girl with the green ribbon, who, if you take the ribbon off, her head falls off. And last but certainly not least, Brenda's last name. Did you catch what it was?
No.
Her last name is Bates, which has not been verified, but is most likely a reference to Psycho, which ties us back in to our typical Thriller Thursday with Bates Motel. So,
what a time.
Also, they spent a lot of time on like Easter eggs, like a lot of the, which like I know Disney does this a lot too. They took a lot of the executive producers and like people who worked in the back and put their names into stuff. Like the doctor's name that was on the pill bottle was like one of the executive producers or something. But those were like, there was a ton of them. So I was like, I'm not even gonna.
Right.
But yeah, so that is our fun facts for this film. Who do you want to punch in the face?
Honestly, Parker. He's a douchebag.
Yeah, he would have been my second choice. I picked Professor Wexler because he was rude to everyone, and I didn't like the way he treated them.
Fair.
And you know how I like to pick someone who's dead already too.
That's also fair. I mean, I punched a dead person too.
That's true. Oh, that was my other thing I missed. That was a follow-up to the Pop Rocks. Was the killer, Brenda poured Pop Rocks and like engine fluid or something down his throat, and that's how he died. It was not soda, but it was Pop Rocks in a liquid.
Cute.
Who is your MVP?
The cop.
Oh, okay.
Because she like was like, hey Dean, I think that there might actually be something to this, and then she like went after them and like tried to save them, and like, did she die? Yes. Did she actually save the day? No. But like, she was the only one who was like, no, these kids might not be fucking stupid.
Yeah. She was the only ones that like tried.
She was the only adult who was not concerned with child safety. Right. Not that 19 and 20-year-olds are children, but like
you still have to protect them.
Yeah.
They're still morons.
Yes.
Well, my MVP, hard left twist, is Brenda.
That is a hard left twist.
Because honestly, so many of these people sucked. That like,
why are we even mad she killed them?
I can't say I blame her. And Rebecca Gayheart, played such a good role in this film. That
right, especially the fact that like you find out that she was faking being stupid.
Yeah. And Brenda, so Officer Reese didn't die. She was just bleeding a lot because I believe what it said was the only two people to come back for Urban Legends, the final cut, which is the second one, was Rebecca Gayheart and
Rhoda Devine. So Officer Reese didn't die?
Yes. She was just bleeding out and didn't die.
Well, because that's the thing is I just assumed that if she was just bleeding out and Brenda was killing everybody, that she would have just like killed her too.
Well, no, she pushed her out the window. So she wasn't in the building anymore. She was getting in the car to kill Paul. And
that's fair.
Loretta Devine and Jennifer. Nope, that's not the right one. And who I just said, Rebecca Gayheart, were the only ones to reprise their roles in the second film. So.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep. So that is a very quick, and by that, like over an hour and a half long discussion of Urban Legends. But I love talking about Urban Legends, and we're kind of switching up our formats on the films because there's not really a whole lot of reason to talk about in depth about their storyline.
Yeah.
Especially for horror films, it's a lot of the behind the scenes that's way more interesting.
Oh yeah.
So
sure.
Thank you for coming to Thriller Thursday. I hope you enjoyed the film. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You're always welcome to suggest movies for the future. And we will be back to our regularly scheduled podcast with Stargate on Sci-Fi Sunday and season 4 of Bates Motel for next Thriller Thursday. You can find us and talk to us at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CECloud13.
And you can follow me everywhere at ENKAY_superstar.
And now I have to go to work. See ya.
Bye.